because of the negative portrayal of Islam in the media, because of these type of verbal attacks, verbal abuse that we see in, say, buses and transportation, sometimes physical attacks, what happens is some Muslims, they think, this is too much. This is too much. I don't want to be verbally abused. I just want to go about my daily business. And so therefore I don't want to basically show people that I'm a Muslim. I want to take any physical sign that I'm a Muslim away from myself. So if I've got a beard, they'll shave the beard off. They've got a hijab, they'll take the hijab off. Even their name, if their name is something beautiful like Bilal, Sayyidina Bilal, they'll say, don't call me Bilal, call me Billy. They use the word Billy instead of Bilal. So you don't know if the person's a Muslim or what religion they are. And why do they do that? Say, well, look, it's difficult. I don't want a difficult life. It's hard enough being Muslim, and I want to go out. I don't want on a daily basis have to put up with this. And so it's very important for us to understand and look at the Seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happened at the time of the Prophet, especially in the early part of the Seerah in Mecca. If you look at Sahaba, they were tortured. Some of them were even killed. Sayyidina Bilal was tortured by Umayyah bin Khalaf, who was his slave master. So when he became Muslim, Bilal became Muslim, radiyallahu anhu, he took him out in the scorching heat. When we go to Makkah or Medina, we say, oh, it's so hot, it's so hot. You're in air-conditioned hotel, you get into the haram, it's air-conditioned, and you're complaining of the 5-minute walk that you have to do to the haram. You try and stand the tarmac for 10 minutes, your feet can't take it. Sayyidina Bilal, he was put on the sand, burning sand. Not only that, they put a rock on his chest to make him leave Islam, and he said, Ahadun Ahad. Allah is one, Allah is one. Right? Even if it meant that he might kill him, he wasn't willing to revoke his faith. Khabbab radiallahu anhu came to the Prophet ﷺ. They were having proper difficulty, not just a little bit of verbal abuse. Danger to their lives. And what happened was, he went to the Prophet ﷺ complaining, about the difficulties, and the Prophet ﷺ reminded him. He said, "In the people before you, there were believers. Some of them, a man was taken, put into a hole, and he was sawn in half. Yet he would not revoke his faith." He said, another, they would get iron combs, and they would separate the flesh from the bones. Yet they would not give up. They would not give up their faith. They would not give up La ilaha illallah. And so, at the end of the hadith, he says, but he goes, you're being hasty. In other words, be patient. When you have difficulty, you be patient in adversity. And this is why we look at in the Quran, so many stories are from the past nations. What happened to them? We take lessons from them. But what do we see? We see that they had difficulties. Anbiya, prophets had difficulty, believers had difficulties. One of the first martyr in Islam, the first woman, was the mother of Ammar ibn Yasir, and she was killed. A spear was put through her midsection, and what happened was Ammar was being tortured, and his father and his mother, and the Prophet ﷺ, he couldn't do anything. He went by them and he said, "Sabran ya ala Yasir." He said, "Patience, O family of Yasir, fa inna maw'idakumul jannah," because you're promised is paradise. In other words, don't focus on the present, don't focus on this world. Think of what the outcome is going to be of this trial that you're going through. And so it was so difficult for some Muslims that the Prophet ﷺ told them to go to Abyssinia, leave. He said, go leave Makkah, you're not safe here. And they had to leave their city, and not only just leave their city and go to another city, no, they had to leave their country, they had to go to another country, where they went to Najashi, the Abyssinian king, who was a just king, and they were allowed to freely practice their faith there. Then they came back later on. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was verbally attacked, was physically attacked. The Prophet ﷺ himself, and they knew the Prophet ﷺ when the Prophet ﷺ called them out to Mount Safa. So Safa Marwa? Safa was, it gives you an idea of what the size of Makkah was like at that time. Safa was slightly outside of Makkah, and their tradition was that if there was an important announcement to make, they would call people out to Safa. So when the Prophet ﷺ was given the order, after 3 years from the beginning of the message, to take the da'wah public, before that it was da'wah sirriya, it was secret da'wah, to take it out to the public, he called people to them at Safa. And he said, if I was to tell you there's an army coming, would you believe me? He said, of course, because you're Al-Amin, you're the trustworthy one, you don't tell lies. We know you've never told a lie. Right? So they knew he was honest. And he said, okay, well, I've been sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they had no answer. And that's when Abu Lahab said, may you perish. Because he didn't have a response, didn't know what to say, but didn't like the message. The point is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was known to them as an honest person. They knew that he did not lie. Yet they still were abusive to him. One incident where he got verbal abuse all the time. One incident when he was physically abused was when he was prostrating at the Kaaba. You know, a person just prostrating, he's minding his own business. And Uqba came and put the intestines of an animal on his neck. And the Prophet ﷺ remained in sajda until Fatima Zahra radiyallahu anha came and removed it. And then he lifted his head. It got to a point where they became so annoyed with the Muslims, they boycotted them. So for 3 years, not only the Prophet ﷺ, Banu Hashim, the whole tribe was boycotted, and Banu Abdul Muttalib as well. They were both boycotted. They couldn't buy and sell. People would marry them. It got to a point where they had no food. They had to eat the leaves of the trees. That's how. This is the difficulties that they went through. You know. So if we compare the difficulties of what they went through and the difficulties that we sometimes complain about, you know, you can make your own mind up who had a more difficult time. But what's interesting is that period in Mecca. There's a lot of correlation with what's happening now. So at that time, the society was against the Muslims. Similar to how many feel victimized by the media especially. They were in a helpless situation. The Prophet ﷺ couldn't do anything. He told the family of Yasir, Sabram ya al Yasir. He said, just have patience, O family of Yasir. They couldn't do much. Similarly to how many people feel powerless in our time. You know, what can we do? The early Muslims also had the whole of society viewing them with suspicion and fear. Very similar to our time as well. Despite all that, did they say, okay, that's it, the society's against us, game over? No, like a lot of people do now. No, despite that, they were patient. They kept calling towards the truth. And through their character, people still became Muslim. People who were enemies, hostile, once they started listening to him and looking at their behaviour, they became Muslim. And so, the lesson for us is that yes, maybe we don't have control over the media, but we have control over our own actions, our daily interactions with Muslims and non-Muslims. When you go to Asda, when you fill your petrol at the petrol station, we're interacting all the time on public transport with non-Muslims, and our good behaviour. That's what the Prophet said. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسِ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. Be with people in a good way, in a good character, right? And there's so many hadith about good character. Heaviest thing in the scales of the Day of Judgment will be good character, and so on. That focus is there for us. That we need to look at the prophetic character, study the Shama'il, study the Seerah of the Prophet, see how he was as a person, how he interacted with people, and try to incorporate those same qualities in ourselves, so that when we are walking in society and people are watching us, they see the prophetic light in our behaviour. And that in itself is a great form of da'wah. I'll give you a very simple example. The Prophet ﷺ used to smile. They said that nobody smiled more than the Prophet ﷺ. Just smiling itself is a form of da'wah. When you're out and about, you're dealing with non-Muslims, just smile. How you doing? Have a nice day. Just simple things. Just a smile. And a sister told me years ago that she was at university and a non-Muslim came up to her and said, I want to ask you why you're smiling. She said, I'm just happy. He said, I'm depressed. I want to know what you've got because I want it. So she never spoke to him, but just the smile, just the sunnah of smiling was a form of da'wah. And so, when people start to see the human side, the compassionate side of Muslims, their perception changes. I'll give you a very recent example. Is the program Boycott, was it? That sister, the Nadia, just a woman who's wearing hijab, just normal person, nice. Did she start quoting ayahs of Quran or hadith? Nothing, right? But just her character, people liked her. That in itself changes perception. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to implement the prophetic character in our lives. It's very important, as a community, we report every single incident, because the more we report, the more it becomes a priority for the police, and they'll actually do something about it. As law-abiding citizens, as people that follow the law, as people who pay our taxes, we are fully entitled to go about our business and not be verbally abused or physically attacked. And it doesn't matter what you wear. It's a free world, isn't it? You're allowed to wear what you want. Everyone can wear what they want, as long as they're not infringing on other people's rights. So that's a very important point. Maybe in the past 30, 40 years ago, a lot of the older generation put up with a lot of racism, and they would turn a blind eye. However, that attitude is not going to get us anywhere. We have to report